Erica Ferrando's been covering the Jack Strain trial for us so far, 2 days in. Erica, I guess give me your general thoughts about today's second day of jury selection.
Well, the jury selection process was pretty long. It took a full 2 days, but they do now have a jury. The attorneys finally agreed on a jury of 12 with 2 alternates. They were sworn in around 4:15 this afternoon, and then they were all let go, and they're expected to be back here at 9 o'clock in the morning. But this was a long process, I think, for 2 reasons. One, the attorneys were, of course, questioning them very thoroughly. They want to make sure that they have a very impartial trial, but also I think these COVID protocols added an extra challenge. They could only allow 14 in at once, and they were very spaced out. So they had to, it made some problems with hearing at some points. And so they had to, all say their names and pull down their masks when they were talking. And I think it took a little bit longer for that reason. But they finally have a jury, and they, seem satisfied, and I think are ready to get started with opening statements.
Now, this jury is pretty evenly split between men and women. The racial makeup of it is interesting, but it is in St. Tammany. So I don't know if that plays a role in the differences in diversity of the population there.
Yes. So there are 6 men and 6 women that make up the jury. There are 2 alternates, also a man and a woman. When it comes to race, there are 11 white, 2 black, 1 Asian juror and alternates. And that may just reflect what is here in St. Tammany Parish and just the pool that they pulled from, because they only ended up having 2 pools of people that they actually ever questioned. They brought in 14 people yesterday and then another 14. And so that was just, I guess, who was selected for jury duty and who they ended up with. And then the ages range, there's probably someone as young as, I would say, maybe 24, 25, and then up to probably mid 60s. A lot of people seem to be middle-aged, maybe in their 50s.
Anything that stuck out in your mind in the voir dire in the questioning of those jurors? That's usually how the attorneys on both sides of a case tend to prep the jury for what they're going to argue.
They did ask the jurors just what they think of law enforcement. They asked them all to rate law enforcement on a scale of 1 to 10. And then, I don't know if we will actually hear Jack Strain speak himself, because they asked the jurors as well, how would you feel if you didn't hear from the defendant? And, there were a couple of them that said, no, I really feel like I need to hear from the defendant. But they said, legally, he's not required to testify. So we don't know if we're going to hear from him. But that was one of the big questions that the defense asked, is how they would feel if they didn't hear from the defendant himself.
Yeah, I guess that's a decision that usually happens down the road, but clearly something that they would want to prep them on the very front end of any kind of case. Something else that's interesting that we talked a little bit about yesterday with you about was the fact that some of these accusations are pretty graphic and disturbing. There are allegations of minor sexual abuse, bestiality in some cases, things that somebody might have to have kind of a hearty stomach to be able to listen to.
And one of the questions they also asked all the jurors was, have you been a victim of sexual assault, or do you know anyone? And they did say, we're going to be using some pretty graphic terms, and you have to be able to sit and handle that and listen. And so they did kind of warn the jury of that and make sure that they were all aware that there would be some, graphic testimonies that they were going to hear over the next couple of days and 2 weeks.
Okay, so opening statements start tomorrow at what time?
Opening statements start at 9 a.m. And then I guess after that, we'll start hearing from some of the witnesses.
Okay, well, that's the time when lawyers really lay out their case and let the jury know what they're about to tell them and what they're going to try and convince them over the next 2 weeks. And Erica Ferrando, you're going to be there for all of it. I can't wait to hear your reports from inside the courtroom.
Thanks, Katie.